Hello and welcome to another episode of Snakes Territory. I'm Jesse Friedman alongside Jack Sommers. And Jack, this was not a good weekend for the Arizona Diamondbacks as they lose 3 in a row to the Colorado Rockies. They lose the series. Of course, a huge opportunity for them to get back into the postseason race potentially. And on top of that, this Ketel Marte saga just continues to be a storyline as Geraldo Perdomo, Diamondback shortstop, interrupted Torey Lovullo's post-game presser, Jack, to speak out in favor of Ketel Marte and basically ask reporters to stop making this a story, that he just wants to go out there and play baseball. This has turned into a bigger story than I think I ever anticipated it would be.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for Geraldo Perdomo. I mean, he's a great guy and a great teammate, and that he really felt everything that he had to say today. I also think that he's not very aware of the Streisand effect and how that impacts, people's desire to further report on the story and to further discuss the story on social media. I don't think that what he did today is going to have the effect that he wants.
That is a very fair point. Yeah, we got some good reporting on this from our friend Jose Romero over at the Arizona Republic, who is in Denver. Jose posted the video of Perdomo talking to the media. It's a fascinating scene, Jack, where Torey Lovullo is standing there, and Perdomo apparently was just behind the reporters in Torey Lovullo's office, and then at a certain point he just decided to step in and start talking. Jose said after the fact he was very respectful with the way that he handled this, but he did interrupt Torey Lovullo's post-game press conference. Not exactly something you see every day. And Perdomo's exact words from Jose Romero: "I want to get something clear about my teammate. I'm tired of this," he said. He went on to say, "It's going to be for all the reporters and writers. This is the second time something came out about Marte. Please, he just wants to play baseball. I don't want to speak as a team. I want to speak as a brother. He just wants to play baseball. Just let the guy alone. It's been too much for him."
Yeah, and clearly very heartfelt words from Geraldo. I'd expect nothing less. I mean, he is a joy of an individual, and he's fiercely loyal. One of the things that kind of has been on my mind since I heard that is I really do think that there's a potential here for a pretty big separation within that clubhouse. Once again, I do not believe that Nick Picoro just made up out of thin air a story about some teammates taking issue with Ketel going to the Dominican Republic right after the All-Star game and abandoning his team for a few days. The fact that there was a robbery at his house was separate. He made the decision to go to the Dominican Republic before he ever knew of any robbery. So that needs to be reemphasized. And there clearly were people that were upset about that. I'm not judging the decision. What I'm saying is this is what happened. It's a matter of fact that he did not get on a flight to go back to Arizona. He went on a flight to go to the Dominican Republic, and then after that found out that his home was burgled. So Nick reported what he was told. He did not make that up. That much I know. As far as other questions about the timing of the report, but I just got to go back and emphasize that point. So what's my point now? My point now is, okay, so if some teammates complained to Nick and voiced those concerns, obviously Geraldo is 100% in Marte's corner. So is Lourdes Gurriel Jr. He posted something very supportive on his Instagram. Then we're looking at the potential for some real fracturing going on inside that clubhouse.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I mean, basically what you're saying is that the people who were a part of this story originally, the players that Nick talked to for this story, they were not Geraldo Perdomo and they were not Lourdes Gurriel Jr., it appears, but they were someone, multiple players that are probably still in that clubhouse. I guess it's possible that maybe one of the guys that the Diamondbacks traded away at the trade deadline was involved there. But Yeah, it's a really messy situation, Jack. And on top of all of that, we also got a report from Bob Nightengale that came out on Sunday morning, which we'll dive into deeper here in a few minutes, talking about the possibility of a trade with Ketel Marte in the offseason, that's something the Diamondbacks will at least explore to some extent. So this whole situation has really blown up, and the natural effect of this, Jack, is that when a story like that breaks and you go 0-3 against one of the worst teams in baseball, people start blaming the story for the way that the Diamondbacks have played the past few days. And on some level, I mean, I certainly understand it being a distraction, but I also don't think there's much of an excuse for the way the Diamondbacks played against the Rockies over the weekend.
Yeah. And one other point I want to make here, too, is look, this isn't only about players complaining and saying things to Nick and to Bob, which we're going to get into. It's about the team, the organization, someone in the front office, for whatever purposes they may have. And one is very much free to question their motives and agenda, but they leaked information or they made comments to Nick and Bob. So, these comments that have been reported weren't only some teammates' comments. There were
Right.
also clear indications that there are people in the front office that are very unhappy with this situation. Now, why did they do that? To what end? Is it going to work in their favor or against their favor and everybody's best interest? That's a whole nother can of worms. But I kind of feel like, this is all turned into now, of course, the world against the media, and the media is the evil media. And, Jerry's comments, I mean, are very much, media, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop what? I mean, we're going to report on what we hear and what we see. That's it. And that's what we do. This is important that he and all the players in that locker room and Ketel himself, which he's already aware of, and fans understand, these words and comments came from the team and from some teammates. I don't know how else to emphasize that. And everyone needs to process that fact and then move on from there instead of pretending like, oh, an uncredible reporter just made this up and pulled it out of his what.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess what you're saying is that Perdomo maybe should be saying these words to his teammates, to the organization. They're the people who are the reason that they're the reason that this story existed in the first place. Because as we've said, neither you nor I believe that Nick Piecoro is just making up stuff that he's heard from people within this organization. These are real things that happened. At least that's what you and I believe. I guess if people want to not believe that what Nick is reporting is true, it's certainly your right to do that. But yeah, it's a really messy situation. And as I alluded to earlier, it got a whole lot messier on Sunday morning when Bob Nightengale basically confirmed that the Diamondbacks are going to consider a Ketel Marte trade. I know this is something that Nick sort of covered in his initial story, where he said that some people in the organization wonder what it would look like for the Diamondbacks to make a Ketel Marte trade, but Nightengale took it further than that, and we are going to dive in to that story, what Nightengale had to report, and the ramifications of that on the other side of this break. Nothing says summer like long days, clutch plays, and firing off a few bets on the game, all with DraftKings Sportsbook. If you've never bet on baseball before, it's easy. Pick a guy to go yard, hammer some live odds mid-game, or just ride with your squad and hope for the best. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code FOUL. That's code FOUL for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario, new customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see DKNG.co/audio. Well, Jack, Bob Nightengale is certainly a friend of ours. He's been a respected reporter for a very long time. He's been at this for a while, and in his Sunday morning column that he released, he had quite a bit to say about this situation with Ketel Marte. We'll put it up on the screen for those of you who haven't seen it already. These are Bob Nightengale's words. The worst kept secret in the Arizona Diamondbacks organization is out. They will listen to offers on all-star second baseman Ketel Marte this winter, knowing that while Marte is extremely talented, he can be a diva in the clubhouse, agitating his teammates and coaching staff. His detractors are still angry that he took a day off the final week of last season when they were fighting for their playoff lives. Though Marte's house in Arizona was robbed the night of the All-Star game, he took a vacation after the break, leaving the D-backs seething. The team put him on the restricted list and refused to pay him during his absence and aired frustrations in a private meeting upon his return. Still, there was no discipline, and he was back in the lineup the following day. Jack, there's a few more words here from Bob, but we'll start with this first section. What are your thoughts on what we see here?
Well, I mean, the only new news in that first section really is the point about there was a private meeting to air frustrations with Ketel. So
Right.
Nick did not write that. That's information that Bob had received, obviously, from someone in the organization. I don't think Ketel told him that. So, I don't know where Bob got exactly that information or which person gave it to him, but that's what he wrote. So that's the new news that's inside that paragraph there. Everything else is stuff we already knew. When he was placed on the restricted list, Torey addressed that the morning of July 18th, stating that we put him on the restricted list because we needed to add someone to the roster for the coverage. So they knew they were going to be without him. The next day in the morning, or the pregame, Torey said he expected Ketel to arrive in time for the game and to be in the dugout and be an option off the bench, but he did not arrive. And then post game, I asked Torey about, that was the first time I tried to press him and say, hey, did he fly from Atlanta direct to the Dominican, or was he here in the States and, came back home and found the house robbed and then went to the Dominican? Thought perhaps, to protect his wife and took his family there. I didn't really know. And at that point in time, Torey deferred. He did not answer the question. He basically said, I don't know the logistics. I don't know what happened there. But subsequently, our good friend John Gambadoro reported the exact details and the logistics and the way it went down. And when asked about that on the radio, Torey confirmed that that's basically what happened, and that on the morning of the 18th was the first time that he knew that Ketel would not be available for the series. So again, that's why Bob writes, how the team was seething over this situation. He booked the flight and went to Dominican Republic and didn't tell the team. That's
Yeah.
why they're
Bob continues. He says the D-backs won't trade their three-time All-Star and NLCS MVP, who has $92.5 million left on his contract after this season, without getting fair value in return. But they're also aware that he'll become a 10-5 player early next season. That gives him full no trade rights. Certainly, the phone lines will be open. And that's a factor, Jack, that I had not considered until Bob brought it up in this story. Ketel at the end of this season will be really close to achieving a full 10 years of Major League service. And because he spent the last 5 years with the same team in the Arizona Diamondbacks, he would get full no trade rights at that point. It would become a whole lot more difficult to move him potentially. I mean, I guess we don't know. Maybe Ketel would be very willing to accept a trade elsewhere. I don't have a read on that, but it might be a risk the Diamondbacks aren't willing to take if he is a player that they're that they would maybe like to move on from at some point.
Yeah. One other point I want to address, because I've seen this point brought up many, many times in many discussion threads, which is, why would the Diamondbacks want to trade a guy that they just extended? Why would
Yes.
they, leak out their displeasure about a guy that they just extended? Well, I think I've just laid out pretty clearly why. I think they feel like, hey, we extended you, we invested in you, we trusted in you, and they probably feel a little bit betrayed by his actions. And
Mm,
that's why they're doing this. Pete, they're human too. And Bob using that word seething and, just reading the words that Nick wrote in response. I mean, the frustration, uh, these are human emotions that the front office is feeling. So if they're feeling those emotions, why would they feel them? They would feel them because they invested in this guy and gave him a $92 million contract extension. And as great as he's played, they feel like he's not fulfilling the full, I guess, essence of what a player of his stature should be doing in terms of uh, teamwork and camaraderie and being there for his teammates and all of that.
mm.
Um, and I'm reading into that a little bit, but that's how I interpret it. People keep asking, why would they do this? Well, because they're pissed.
Yeah.
Why are they pissed?
I've spent some time too, Jack, in the past couple of days trying to think about that question of why would the people who were willing to not be quoted, not have their names used, but whatever people Nick talked to for this story, what was in it for them to make this information public? Because as a lot of people have pointed out, I mean, this is a recipe for a clubhouse that has some tension, right? And obviously the players, the people in the organization who are willing to be part of this story on background, they were aware of the ramifications of this information being made public. And the only explanation I can think of is basically what you just said, that they're trying to make a statement to Ketel Marte himself. Like, hey, this is how we feel, and we're not going to put our names out there, but there are people in this organization that are not satisfied with what you're bringing to the team right now. Obviously, he's played great on the field when he's been out there, but there's some pretty clearly some dissatisfaction. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense at all for these people to go out there and be willing to make this information public. I can't say it enough. Nick Pecora would not have been able to write this story if these players and the people in the organization were only willing to talk strictly off the record. And that is something that happens all the time. There is so much information. I mean, you could talk to any beat writer in all of Major League Baseball who's been around for a while. They know a lot of stuff that they cannot report on. And certainly, any seasoned journalist is going to know the distinction between what you can use in a story and what you can't. But obviously, in this case, this was information that Nick was able to report, even though he wasn't able to use, actual names. So it's a fascinating situation, Jack. I guess the question for those people now is Ketel Marte going to get the message that it seems they tried to send with this?
Yeah. And just to clarify, I mean, speaking on background, that means that that's information that a reporter is allowed to use for a story,
Right.
but he's not allowed to attribute to use a specific quote and attribute a name to it.
Right.
Okay. So we get information all the time on background. This topic, that topic. I mean, that happens very frequently. And sometimes I use it that way.
Anytime a
Sometimes,
trade is broken, right? Jeff Passan doesn't tweet breaking, such and such player signs with team according to this general manager or this agent. A lot of the biggest news that breaks in baseball is on background. We don't get the actual names of the people who are behind it.
correct. So look, I'm not anywhere in the same zip code of a quote unquote insider when it comes to who in the organization talks to me, and what they'll reveal to me as Nick is. But occasionally I do come across information that way, and I have used it in some of my stories without attributing a quote. And really in that situation, like you don't quote without you don't give a specific detailed quote. You just kind of paraphrase what was said. And I've done that before for various stories.
Gambo also voiced some thoughts on this whole situation. This was a quote tweet that he put out on Sunday afternoon. He said a determination will come at the end of the season when the powers that be all meet to discuss. This is talking about whether Ketel Marte is going to continue to be a member of the Diamondbacks after this season. How much of Marte's issues are style of managing, aiding and abetting? Is he a negative influence on others? Can the relationship be salvaged? Enormously talented player who is very self-absorbed. Not an easy decision. He is one of the best players in franchise history in his prime. And Gambo goes on from there. So clearly, Jack, Gambo is not pushing back on the premise of what Nick reported or what Bob Nightengale reported. All of these reports seem to coincide with each other, but it sounds like a very real and hard decision that the team is going to make, apparently, at the beginning of this upcoming offseason.
Could you pull up Gambo's? Actually, there were the last couple sentences there I wanted to
Sure.
look at one time. So he says, I'd expect very soon after season ends, they come to a decision on what is best path forward. I do think if there is some compromise, it can be salvaged. But if not, yes, they would explore trading. I thought that was important. Again, this is, Gambo's thoughts and opinions based on what he's been told and heard. So, take it for what it's worth. Look, I hate this topic so much. I really do. I mean, I don't want any of this to have happened. And, it's uncomfortable for me. And I'm not going to have fun tomorrow walking in a clubhouse either.
Yeah.
It's just going to be a pretty crappy situation all the way around. And I know that there are people out there that just don't like media and, will assume that it's all our fault. But it isn't. We didn't create this situation. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Well, I know you've done just a little bit of digging, Jack, and this is certainly a larger topic that I guess we'll maybe be talking about during the offseason now. What would a Ketel Marte trade actually look like? Obviously, this wouldn't happen anytime super soon. The trade deadline has passed. There's certainly not something that could happen until the offseason itself. But Ketel Marte is a tricky player to trade, Jack, because he's really freaking good. And I don't think no part of this story disputes that, right? I mean, everyone involved knows that Ketel Marte is one of the best players in all of baseball. And when he's been on the field, which has still been pretty often, the past couple of years, he's missed some time, but he's stayed relatively healthy, and he's asked for these few days off here and there, yes, but it's not like it's happening twice a week or anything like that. He's been a really, really good player, and it's just really tough to trade away someone like that, especially when you're trying to remain competitive, which is what we expect for the Diamondbacks going into next year.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's an MVP candidate. A healthy Ketel Marte playing up to his abilities is an MVP candidate. Now, there are some thoughts I have regarding second basemen, middle infielders in their mid 30s. They tend to tail off pretty hard. So ages 35, 6, and 7, probably aren't. That's when he gets the most expensive. His overall average annual, $92 million over 5 years. It's under $20 million. Is very team friendly. But I think that if another team is interested in taking Ketel Marte, they're essentially looking at having a windfall profit with his production versus his dollar price tag in the first 2 years of that deal. I mean, he's at least a 4.5 to 5.5, 6, 7 WAR player potentially if he can play over 140 games. Now, he's missed a quarter of the games this year. He's played 92 now out of 125. Last year, I think he played 100 and just around 140, maybe a little less.
Something like that.
He missed about 20 something games, I believe, last year. I'm not going to bother looking it up. We know what happened with the ankle roll.
It was 136. Yeah.
136. That still pisses me off. Garrett Stubbs.
Yeah.
So, I played around with some numbers like I always do. And I looked at, I think the main point is, how does another team project him and value him? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made 3 different charts, kind of a lower end, a more median end, and a more higher end projection of what he might look like. And it just coincidentally, Jesse sent it over to me as I was preparing it. The Fangraphs trade value article from July, where Ketel was ranked the 31st highest trade value in MLB. So, that was interesting. I mean, here's a guy that's a perennial MVP candidate when he's healthy. You would think the ranking would be actually a little higher than 31, especially considering his contract. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But the production value that they projected was 14.2 WAR, and my median case was 15 WAR. So same thing, over the 5 years. So it's really hard though. Maybe another team just says, "Yeah, I don't care about the last 2 years." You go to a big market team. What's the difference if he, is hurt or injured or whatever the last year or two? If he is a 5 WAR player next year and the year after at 12 and $15 million, 27 total. I mean, that's a total coup for a big market team that's, trying to make that final push and get over the hump. So, teams will value differently than any value calculator that we can put out there. On the other hand, the issues that have come up and the way they've been portrayed can't help his trade value.
No.
So, I don't know what they could get. I just know that trading a guy like Ketel Marte, you're almost never going to come out ahead. You're probably going to end up trading for multiple pieces, multiple guys, and, you're never going to get the best player in the deal back. If you trade Ketel Marte, the best player in the deal is going out the door.
Yeah.
And you never want to be the guy that's not getting the best player in the deal.
I mean, theoretically, you would think that despite whatever the numbers might say about his surplus value over these next 5 years, there probably ought to be a premium that you pay just to have access to a player like Ketel Marte. I mean, if Ketel was on the open market, Jack, this offseason, he's 31 years old. He's about to be 32. He would get a lot of money. I mean, it would be at least 200 million. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. There's no way he signs for less than that, right? You think it's less than 200?
Yes. He's got an injury history. He's a 32-year-old middle infielder. He's not 29, 30 hitting free agency. There's a difference. You're looking at.
I guess the fact that he's about to be 32. I mean, a lot of the comps from recent seasons were younger than that. So you do have to factor that in. But I'm thinking of, Trey Turner getting about 300 million and Xander Bogaerts getting 280.
Yeah, and how are those working out?
Yeah, not great, but these deals continue to be signed. I mean, it's not like
younger. They're still considerably younger,
right?
And had healthier track records leading into free agency.
Yeah, that's true. I guess the Trey Turner deal hasn't been a total disaster for the Phillies. He's kind of bounced back nicely for them. Even Xander Bogaerts has played better lately. So, I mean, maybe it isn't 200 million. I honestly still think it is because Ketel right now is a better player than either Xander Bogaerts or Trey Turner was at the time. I mean, Ketel is just outstanding. He's arguably a top 5 hitter in all of baseball. So I don't know what the number is, but all that to say, I think that whatever the surplus value is, the Diamondbacks are probably going to ask for more than that in a trade if they're actually going to do this.
Yeah. Well, I agree with that. I mean, I came up with, the surplus value high end was 50 something million based on a little bit higher than 15 WAR projection. I think I got up to like 17 or 18, by bumping it up every year. I mean, these regress projections are a pain in the neck to deal with, right? Because we look at him as a 6 or 7 WAR player, and then you look at every projection, and it's like, 4.5 for next year, at best.
Right.
So, because they're going to bake in that aging curve. I mean, the aging curve's a real thing, and they bake it in there, so it hurts the projection.
Yeah, well, it's a fascinating situation. I'm sure that if this continues to be a story, which it looks like it will, there will be more discussions to be had about a Ketel Marte trade package and what that could entail. We're going to actually talk about some baseball, though. On the other side of this break, we'll talk about what was a very miserable weekend on the field against the Colorado Rockies.
FT fans, You want to have confidence when you go out in public? Absolutely. We can't all wear a backwards hat like me, but you can get some True Classic fit shirts. It almost looks like, oh, wow, this shirt was tailored for me. Nope, it's every True Classic. This John is soft, it is smooth, and it makes you look a little jacked. I'm just saying.
And Kratz, you are jacked, and you are spot on. True Classic is the spot to go if someone's like, where do I get shirts? True Classic. The colors are fantastic. They've sold over 25 million shirts to more than 5 million customers. Their shirts just win. The feel, the tailored look, the price. We all wear True Classic on FT. I mean, Cam Maben literally can't say enough about them too next time we have Cam on. Hit up trueclassic.com/foul. Give it a shot. Upgrade your wardrobe and save on True Classic at trueclassic.com/foul. That's trueclassic.com/FOUL.
Well, Jack, as I mentioned earlier in the show, there is, of course, the narrative that this whole Ketel Marte story has cast a shadow over the organization and is what ultimately caused the Diamondbacks to lose 3 consecutive games over the weekend. I'm not sure I totally buy that. Really, Ketel was fine over the course of the weekend. He went 4 for 14, 3 doubles. The offense was okay for the most part. The problem, as has often been the case this season, was a bullpen that allowed 12 earned runs in 8 2/3 innings of work.
Yes, that, and also in games 2 and 3, the bottom of the order combined to go, the bottom 4 in the order combined to go 2 for 30.
Yeah.
And then in today's finale, the runners in scoring position, I think, was 3 for 14 or something like that. 2 for 14, 3 for 14. They had a lot of chances to score. In game 2 that they lost 4-3, Alec Thomas broke back on a ball that was blooped in front of him and then wasn't able to make up the ground. That was the 4th run scored against Brandon Pfaadt, and that turned into the losing run. But yeah, the 2 bullpen losses are the ones that are going to stick out in everybody's mind. And, they just happened from bad execution. I mean, Andrew Hoffman walked 2 guys and then gave up 2 hits. Gave up single, 2 walks, and another base hit. And he didn't execute. Andrew Saalfrank came in and allowed them to put the game out of reach by giving up a home run on a sinker that was, right thigh high, right in the middle. And then today, Jake Woodford hit 2 batters to load him up. And, you're just not going to get away with that. Not in Coors Field, even against the Rockies. It's kind of back to every button you have to push is the self-destruct button. One thing I noticed that John Curtis didn't work in this series. So it's the one guy I noticed that didn't get in any games. Jalen Beeks gave up a run today, and that turned out to be a pivotal run, right? Because, they lost by 1. It's just, look, the bottom line is this. The Diamondbacks do not have a bullpen. I mean, every time that gate swings open, they're in danger of losing the game, regardless of up by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 runs. They're in danger of losing the game. Any game that bullpen door swings open.
Yeah. And it's, there have been some fun moments with some of these young relievers. Kyle Backus has shown what he can do at times. Andrew Hoffman has looked good in spurts, and Juan Burgos, Juan Murillo. You've seen flashes from all these guys.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you don't necessarily want to have these guys working in the 8th inning, the 9th inning, pitching in the most pivotal moments. That's not the stage of career that any of these pitchers are actually in. But it's just the reality of where the Diamondbacks are right now as a team, Jack, that, Andrew Hoffman has been sort of the 8th or 9th inning guy, and Andrew Saalfrank is, pitching the highest leverage innings. And it's just kind of a mess of a situation with what is being asked of those guys right now. I guess it was in some ways only a matter of time that you would, there have been some bullpen meltdowns this year for sure, but some of these young guys have pitched really well. Maybe it was only a matter of time before, reality caught up to where those guys are right now.
Yeah. I mean, right now, all you can do is hope that these are actual learning experiences and not confidence shattering experiences.
Yeah.
Right? that they're going to be able to learn and grow and figure out from these and be part of a useful bullpen next year. It was funny. I went back in time and I was just doing a little Monday morning quarterbacking. I was looking at Kenley Jansen. I happened to see something on Twitter. Thomas Nestico always publishes a lot of pretty cool lists. And it showed Kenley Jansen had the 10th best WPA. So I just looked up, I'd kind of been keeping track of him. 23 for 24 in saves, 2.72 ERA, plus 3.1 WPA, which is win percentage added, which means he's done well in all his high leverage situations, or most of them. And he's paid $10 million. And, the original plan that Mike had was to bring in a closer / high leverage guy, and he wasn't able to get it done. And the money went to Corbin Burns. And you just kind of wonder, if they had a Kenley Jansen, would the usage have been the same for Puck and Martinez? Would that have alleviated some of the potential injury issues? That's a pretty speculative thing to say, but I'm going to put it out there. Or just simply, if they had Kenley Jansen, and even if Puck and Martinez went down, would it have made it a little bit easier to say, okay, well, we still have, a surprising Shelby Miller doing pretty well, and be more aggressive and go make an early move to get another setup man. I mean, there's plenty of Carlos Estevez had a good season. I mean, there were a lot of guys out there that could have had between 8 and 10 million. Flip side is Jansen's 37 years old, and we went down that road with Melanson.
Yeah.
And look how that turned out. So, and I criticize signing old closers. So I'm not trying to speak out both sides of my mouth. Thinking about all this stuff and wondering okay, where do they go from here? I think they have no choice. If they have any designs on trying to compete next year, they have to trade for or sign a legitimate closer. They absolutely have to, and then build the bullpen around that. Anything less than that is absolutely failing to learn from previous mistakes.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I guess where we can maybe end our conversation today, Jack, is a look at the standings and where this not great weekend has put the Diamondbacks at this point. Yeah, it's not. I don't know if Diamondbacks fans really care or want to look at the standings after these last couple days. It's amazing how quickly things can change. But as we're recording this, the New York Mets have a big lead over the Seattle Mariners in their Sunday night game. So assuming the Mets finish the job there and win that game, the Diamondbacks would be 6.5 games out of that third wild card spot. And I know we said the other day, Jack, that it's not over till it's over. You told all these lovely stories about your childhood and some of the amazing things that we've seen in years past in this sport, but some of that optimism has died down the past few days.
It's natural. I mean, look, it's not only that they lost these games, but it's how they lost them was another reminder of just, how up against it they are. I mean, it's not just where they are in the standings and the records. It's how do you get on a run without a bullpen?
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to just circle back to, though, I almost forgot, Blaze Alexander. I mean, his confidence level and his ability to make plays at third base and utilize that arm from that position. Somebody asked me today, who would you rather see next year in 2026 at third base, Jordan Lawler or Blaze Alexander? And without hesitation, I answered Blaze Alexander. I would rather see Blaze Alexander starting at third base than Jordan Lawler because the emphasis was on defense. Like, who do you think would be better defensively? And there's no question in my mind it would be Blaze. I mean, he clearly has the athleticism and the reaction time, and I know he has a stronger arm than Jordan. Jordan's arm's fine, but it's not Blaze's. And so, I think they need to find a spot for Jordan or trade him for pitching, one or the other. But if you're asking me today who I want starting at third base in 2026, I'm going to pick Blaze based on the defense.
Yeah, and the offense for Blaze certainly taken a step forward. He has a 752 OPS at this point. The hard contact numbers are pretty good there. He's really started to pound the baseball around here these past few weeks. So, Yeah, I still feel like I need to see more from Blaze from an offensive standpoint, Jack, before
Agreed.
I'm ready to declare him as an everyday player. There was quite a bit of swing and miss last year. This year's strikeout rate is still right at 30%, which is not really a comfortable place for me. So, but defensively, I agree. He looks like the type of player that he was sort of touted as when he was first coming through the system, like a guy who could play some pretty flashy defense in the infield. You could move him around just about anywhere, and someone that we figured might be able to stick around offensively as well. I just need to see a little bit more of that.
Yeah, well, as when it comes to the hitting, like I don't expect his OPS to stay around 752. I expect that to regress back down towards 700. Absolutely. If he keeps it at or just slightly above 700, that's a total win if he's playing defense like this.
Yeah.
And then how much confidence do you have in Jordan Lawler to give you more than a 700 OPS?
Not a ton, not not a whole lot, given what we've seen from him, the very little that we've seen from him in the majors. So, yeah, I guess I'm curious going into next year, to what extent are the Diamondbacks trying to feel really comfortable with what they have at each position? Or are they more just trying to have a body that they feel okay about everywhere? I think we kind of have a lot to learn still about how all in is this team going into 2026. Are they really trying to just reload and go for it again? Or with the payroll potentially dropping, is this sort of a year where they're going to try, but they're not going to try all that hard to put the best team out there that they can?
Yeah, well, we'll see. I expect a lot of trades.
Yeah.
I expect a lot of trades. I expect to see at least 2 or 3 guys peeled off that top 10 prospect list, plus an outfielder. I'm not necessarily Ketel, that would be, again, I just don't see how they could get proper value back for Ketel. So I'm skeptical there for that reason alone. But, I think that we're going to see a lot of trades this offseason from the Diamondbacks.
So you're still pretty skeptical of the idea of a Ketel trade, despite all of the reporting we've gotten in the last couple of days. I think that's probably where I would land too,
Yeah.
where I just don't understand what the trade looks like. Who are you getting back where it actually feels like your team is better after you trade away one of the best players in baseball? I can hardly imagine it coming together.
Yeah, I don't see it either. Where does a team have so much excess that they can give you equal value back from to plug whatever hole Ketel would fill for another team? Like, is some team going to give you a 5-WAR pitcher under control for the next 3-4 years?
No, probably
Okay.
not.
So, where are you going to get that value back? If you trade Ketel, you're going to get several major league ready pieces or guys are already in the majors, and you're going to get a couple of prospects, and it's going to be a volume deal, and you're going to hope that you really get some really good players out of 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah, I just don't know if I see it. This was a story at the trade deadline too, right? Where there wasn't much to it, and you and I kind of downplayed it, and I think rightfully so at the time, where Mike Hazen made a comment about how he would listen on anyone, right? And so people were going crazy about, oh my gosh, the Diamondbacks are going to trade Ketel Marte. It didn't really seem like something they were seriously considering. But yeah, sure, you would consider trading Ketel for, a Tarek Skubal or a Paul Skeens or one of the several best pitchers in all of baseball. But I don't see how the Diamondbacks could do the deal unless they got someone like that. If you don't come out of that trade with a frontline starting pitcher, what's even the point? I don't think it makes sense to trade Ketel for another position player somewhere else. And I think what you would need is pitching, and I just don't think you're going to get a frontline starter who's young with control for a player, as you said earlier, who's very, very good, but also has some track record of injury and, is entering his mid-30s. We don't really know what it's going to look like for him for the next few years.
Yeah. Well, this is a horse that we'll be beating to death for the next
Yes, so stay tuned here on Snakes Territory because, yeah, for better or worse, that's a story we're probably going to be talking about here for a while. But we say thank you to all of you for being with us on this episode. We really appreciate your time. As always, be sure to like this video, drop a comment. We'd love to hear from you, and subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. That helps us out a lot. If you're joining us on an audio-only platform, it would also really help us if you would leave us a rating and review there. Over on social media, you can find us as well. I am at Jesse N. Friedman. Jack is at ShoeWizard59. And our show is at Snakes Territory. And yes, we very much appreciate you being with us through this ruckus of a weekend that it's been for the Arizona Diamondbacks. We hope to see you again soon here on Snakes Territory. We will be back with another episode here as this 2025 season rolls on. We'll be back again here very, very soon.